And then some people, like the longer levered athletes, longer arms, narrower shoulders, they're not going to be as good at lifting weights. It's just totally wild, And you see that in even mountain biking. Okay, there's so many different shapes of people out there. They're on different bikes. They take different lines, and they're within a second of each other, right? So
yeah, it's actually one of my questions. We might as well do it now because we're on the subject.
Go on.
One of my questions was sort of, if you could build the dream mountain bike athlete from your years of experience training people and from what you know of the sport, what would you say the body shape, the
I know what you mean.
attributes, what would you say would be the World Cup winning formula?
Well, as you see the sport tightening up now, which it is, right? People are professional way earlier than they were. 20 years ago, whoever could ride the best hungover would win. Right?
Yeah.
Now it's wildly different. The juniors now are super professional, aren't they? Shirts tucked in. They all have coaches, mindset coaches. They're there on time. They've got this shit together, right?
Yeah.
So as the sport tightens up in that way, your question will be answered by the sport, I think. So you'll see, if you look at the women's, most of the women in the top 10 are pretty square, aren't they? There's nothing frail about those girls in the top 10. Nina Hoffman, Millie Johnset, Rachel Atherton.
By square, you mean strong?
Yeah, they're not. There's nothing frail about them.
Yeah.
So you'll see the stronger girls coming through because it requires that level of strength. And with the men, maybe the longer levered athletes are coming through now. The Greg Menards, the G Athens. Even back then, most of the athletes now are kind of quite lean. Like yourself, like I am. I haven't seen you stood up. I can't remember what shape you are.
Just stacked.
Stacked, just hench.
Yeah.
So I would say probably a longer levered athlete, slightly taller.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'd probably say taller.
Because I would say that there's not really been, like you say, Greg Munn, but we've also had Sam Hill, we've also had Danny Hart, and Troy Brosnan, and really like much more smaller framed and lighter riders. I think this as a sport, I think it's mad. Like compared to a lot of other sports, there's no blueprint that I've seen. But interesting you're saying longer levers is.
I would say longer lever usually is a benefit. I think.
And would you say it's longer lever maybe because bikes have got bigger as well?
If you're a bit taller, the bikes can get longer. Maybe they can get faster before they start.
Bigger wheels, that sort of thing. So the extra leverage just helps
enough.
Manipulate those things. I don't know. Like you say, it's tough because. I think Finn seems to have filled out quite a bit and got a lot bigger, but his first year in elite,
he's not long levered though, is he? He's like
he was small.
But if you look at maybe who are the top 10 fastest people in the world, who I'm not asking you to name them, would you say
Amory?
Yeah, long levered athlete for sure.
Loic?
No, he's a bull, isn't he? He's a power rider. And some people, like a client of mine, Jordan, for example, junior world champion, first World Cup win in his first elite race. He's only this year started taking weight seriously. He only employed me 6 months ago.
Right.
And I sometimes get messages from parents who are like, "Oh, my kid's showing talent. We'd like him to get up to World Cup pace." And you're like, you have a conversation. You find out the kid's 8 years old. You're like, whoa, hang on a second. Like, put a shovel in his hand. Just tell him to go and dig and enjoy himself. He doesn't need to be lifting weights with a professional coach and a trainer and a program now. Just leave him alone. And people think that by starting earlier they're going to get an advantage. I don't think that's the case.
When do they need to start?
It depends. Some people might get away with not needing it, right? So there's some athletes who don't really train that hard.
Bernard, probably a good example of that up until not that long ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the conversation in moto is always really interesting. Like when you have to be riding at a high level from.
Yeah.
If you speak to most people, always there's going to be examples outside of it, but you speak to most people and it's like you can't really get into it when you're like later. 15 nowadays. No. It's not really possible.
I think moto is a great one because that sport, especially in the States, seems to be way ahead because even back when I was into the moto industry and stuff, moto scene, kids were homeschooled. Even actually in the UK,
they're backing it that hard from that.
Yeah, like it's we're not by age 10, this kid's got some promise, right? Homeschooling, rides every day, race at the weekend, and that's just the life we live.
Yeah.
And I think, moto has definitely carved out a path of probably a lot of mountain bikers have followed that. I think Jackson, I don't know if Jackson was homeschooled. I don't think he was he? But
no idea.
But definitely that into it earlier. Because you look at the age of the athletes now, it seems to have really come down. It's like, again,
they're getting professional way earlier.
Way earlier.
Yeah. And they got this shit together. And the kids want it too, right? They're focused.
And it always freaks me out because they'll talk again in the moto stuff of like, oh, he's 30. He's like a veteran of the sport, and you're like, what the heck? Still feel like I'm just getting going.
Yeah,
but
right.
By that
I'm 39,
point,
and I feel like I'm just getting started with life.
So look at Greg. He's the old guy almost. Yeah. But he's 40.
Yeah, I think he might be
scary.
more than 40.
Might be 41, 42.
I think he was 40 when he won the world champs a couple of years ago.
Which is scary.
Yeah.
So the sport's come down, hasn't it? So it's
I kind of wish you wouldn't, though. You know.
Yeah, definitely. But it's hard then as well, maybe to put a body type on it because the
I see
still
what you're
developing.
Saying. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like in my 20s, I was still developing in a way. Like you start to be able to put muscle on, or you start to be able to, take physical fitness a bit more serious. I don't know, purely my opinion. But
so I started going to the gym when I was 17 after like shoulder separations.
Yeah. So rehabilitation was it started off.
Yeah. So that's I started then, and then before then I would only ever exercise in whatever basketball or in bikes,
football training or something like that, whatever it was.
They were the only thing. So in the sport that I was training for, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then and I always used to have this like vision of being muscle bound if I went to the gym, which is so funny.
Yeah.
Like
By accident.
Like yeah. Like I wish I had done it earlier than 17 because I would have stopped myself from having all these injuries.
Yeah.
In hindsight, it was stupid, but it was just this view I had.
Yeah. Women especially share that view, right? So
okay, yeah.
Well, I don't want to get all muscly to say, look, you can't, you couldn't.
Yeah.
So these girls who are on the stage, posing and stuff, the bodybuilding, the bikini model girls, they're like seriously in the hole, right? They train 6 hours a day. Sometimes their teeth fall out and stuff from fatigue and things, right? It's not going to happen by accident, especially when you don't have testosterone on your side.
Yeah.
Strength training for women is the best thing to happen to the fitness industry that I've seen. Women love it now,
Did you enjoy this clip? If so, please like and subscribe. The full episode is available by hitting one of the links on the screen right now, or type the Ride Companion into your favourite podcast app. We've even put links in the show description for you. Cheers!